Kelvin, it's good to see you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. I don't know who said that, though. Who said that?
It's Chris Brewer. So thanks for giving us the time this afternoon. I'll allow you to make a couple opening remarks, and then we can throw it out to some questions. And the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for being here this afternoon. Obviously, after 10 practices, you know, our guys are working hard. I can't stress that enough. It's been much talked about, you know, with the losses up front that we've had over the past couple of years, you know, how we're going to replace them. And, you know, that doesn't, it's not an overnight process. You know, the process of replacing is year round. That starts with, you know, the training that the guys receive, both from fall camps, you know, bowl preps, things of that nature. So, you know, the unique thing about, you know, this year is that we haven't had the opportunity to have those, that bowl prep. We didn't have the opportunity to have that spring ball last year. So these 15 opportunities that we have this spring are they're invaluable for the group. But I can't say enough about the attitude and the effort, the energy, the enthusiasm that these young men bring to practice every day. And it's going to be needed, because we talk about nothing great's ever been achieved without energy and enthusiasm. And those guys bring it every single day. So I'm really pleased with where we're at as a group. You know, the guys up front, the older guys up front, Van Valkenburg, Noah Shannon, you know, John Wagner, those guys are doing an excellent job leading the room, leading by example, and both leading vocally. So I just can't say enough about those guys, what they've done. They've embraced that leadership role, and you know, they've had the opportunity to be in those young guys' positions, you know, a few years ago. It's strange to think about Noah and John, for instance, as being the older guys in the room. I remember when they both came in as freshmen in 2018, and, you know, just puppies wet behind the ears and didn't know up from down. But those older guys did an excellent job of leading them, and then they're now returning to favor. And that's the culture that you want to breathe in the room, that guys understand that they're going to surrender me and adopt we as soon as they walk in, and just keep that cycle going of when young guys come in, guys, you know, bring them into the fold, continue to help them, mentor them, coach them on the side, you know, tell them right from wrong. And then when you have a situation when opportunities arise through graduation, through early entry to the NFL draft, things of that nature, that the young men are ready. They're ready for the opportunity. So I'm excited. It's a really good group, fun group, and the future's bright for them. So with that being said, I'll open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Kelvin. We will take the first question this afternoon from Rick Brown.
Hey, Kelvin. A lot of people, you know, if their career had ended with an injury and they might have put football in the rearview mirror, but yet you have kept a passion for it, and you've turned into a coaching profession. What kept you going with football after it was so tough on you?
Man, how long you got, Rick? That's a great question, and it's a question that I bring up a lot. You know, yeah, unfortunately, my football career was cut short, and I was done with it. I remember Coach Ferentz offered me an opportunity to become a student coach, and I turned it down. If I finished my degree, I was going to go, and I got my degree in computer science and mathematics, and I was going to go off into the real world. And I found out that I didn't really like the real world. I didn't. My younger brother moved to Iowa City with me my last year in college, and he went to Iowa City, Regina, and I would go up there, and you know, it was not the Regina that you know today. You know, they didn't have a strength coach. I would go up there and work out with my brother, and it started out with just he and I, and it turned it into 20-something guys. And Coach Chuck Evans, who's actually Joe Evans' uncle. Small world, but you know, Chuck Evans gave me an opportunity to coach the junior high at Regina. I was the defensive coordinator with Glenn Plummer, and that just being out there with those kids every day. I'd go to work, and then I'd get off early and scribble up some plays or some drills and go out there. And I had the time of my life just being around those young people. So that's how I got into it. Throughout my whole entire coaching journey, you know, which I've always kept in contact with Coach Ferentz. I let him know where I was at every stop, not in anticipation of coming back here, but you know, it's about who you know, and coaching is a networking business. So you know, I figured if I could keep him, you know, in my pocket and have him in my pocket, maybe make a phone call for me here or there, that would create an opportunity for me later on. So yeah, I had a taste of the real world, long story short, and it wasn't for me. I love this coaching thing. I love being around young people. It's an unbelievable platform to be able to reach out and mentor them, and I don't take it for granted.
Thank you for that, Kelvin. The next question is from Leah Van.
Hi, Kelvin. I'm Leah. I'm from the Cedar Rapids Gazette. It's nice to meet you virtually. And we talked to some of your players yesterday, and they were saying that you give like an inspirational quote every day on their like note sheets. And I was wondering where you draw those quotes from. And that was my first question. My second question was about Joe Evans and where you see him playing this fall. We saw quite a bit of him on Saturday.
Well, you know, those inspirational quotes, they come from a lot of different places. Some as quick as a Google search, if I need to find something that's on my mind. And I've got a friend of mine, Tim Triplett, who every year sends me the leadership papers. And it's got a motivational quote for every day of the year. 365 days, there's a quote in there. And so, you know, I reference that a lot because there's some things that aren't as widely known that are on there. And I just think it's again, getting back to the mentoring and the coaching. It's not all about X's and O's. It's not always about, you know, making sure your eyes are in the right place and playing with pad level. You got to relate to these kids on a personal level. The development has to be holistic, and that's the reason for the quotes every day. It's because I want them to not only apply them to the game, but they can be applied in their everyday life. So, yeah, it's I enjoy doing it. I enjoy finding those quotes every single day because, you know, they inspire me too.
The second part of that question was your insight on Joe Evans.
Joe is hard charging. Love his energy. He, you know, I think his development in terms of a full-time defensive lineman, I think people are ready to see that. He's had an excellent spring. I remember when I got him in the spring ball of 2019 was when he made that trip from the linebacker room to the D-line room. And I knew we had a hard charging guy with great athleticism, but he's really embraced the fundamentals of defensive line play, the leverage, the blow delivery, the separation, all those things, and going from playing on 2 feet to playing with your hand down. You know, he's really taken to that. And I'm excited for him this fall because, I mean, not only he's got the pass rush acumen, he's got that knack for doing that, but man, he's really come on as a first and second down player as well.
Kelvin, the next question is from Scott Docterman.
Hey, Kelvin, how are you today?
Doing great, Scott. How about you?
Good. I'm doing well. I want to ask you about Y.A. Black. Seems like a silent assassin. I know that's how he was kind of referenced when he signed. He didn't get a workout on Saturday. What have you seen from him that kind of puts him on the one line, and what can we expect from him as he grows into a mature football player?
The thing that so Y.A. is, I mean, he's a great recruiting story. The thing that I like the most about him is his demeanor, and, you know, quiet assassin. I wouldn't call him an assassin just yet. He ain't really put a hit out on anybody, but man, he practices his butt off. And that's one thing you noticed as a freshman last year is that when the pads come on, he has an intent that is different from most first-year players that you see. And he doesn't even know it, but he's a hostile player on the interior. And he was hostile in camp, and that hostility carried on to when he got here. So I'm really excited to continue working with him. But the thing that I'm most impressed with is just his maturity about the game. You know, he's a note taker. He's a great question asker. He listened and soaked up last year so much from Davion and Heflin and Chauncey, and he really wants to be good at it. And there's a lot of guys that want to be good at it, but they're not willing to do that work, that extra work. I mean, he came in and met with me Monday and Wednesday, twice a week from when we started back school in January until we started spring ball. Not every guy did that. Not every guy came in to meet with me and watch tape. And I made sure that when he came in, don't come in unprepared. Come in with questions so we can be productive in this half hour, 45-minute session that we have. And every time he came in with questions, and you could really see it. You know, unfortunately, you know, he didn't get a chance to show the fans on Saturday what he's got, but we're looking forward to getting him back in the fall.
Kelvin, the next question is from Chad Leistico.
Hey, Kelvin, taking the conversation a little bit off the field here. We asked Seth about yesterday's verdict in Minneapolis, and he alluded to some conversation that occurred this morning. I couldn't tell if that was within your team or what. Did you guys have talk about the verdict as a team? And kind of, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on where things stand with the program and your thoughts nationally, frankly.
Unfortunately, I wasn't here this morning. I took my son to daycare, so I missed that meeting. And we have had conversations open. There was a conversation had amongst the Hawkeye championship teams about the verdict, and there was conversations had last week too about the Dante Wright killing as well. In terms of the verdict, yesterday it was a day filled with sadness, and it was a day filled with relief. The sadness was because it opened some old wounds from when last year when George Floyd was murdered. It opened some wounds there that it did happen. It brought it back. It brought it back to the forefront. So that created some sorrow just in my heart, but there was also some relief too in the verdict, because even though people saw what they saw on camera, I wasn't one to raise my hand and say that it was going to be a slam dunk conviction on that case. And I think that goes to show you, even if you can see a man be murdered on camera for the world to see, and for you to still have doubt that the perpetrator will be convicted of murder, shows you how much further we have to go, just in terms of race relations, in terms of accountability, in terms of justice, because I've seen it where it didn't go that way, where the verdict didn't go that way. So a long way yet still to go in terms of race relations and police relations, a long way to go in terms of justice and reform. But this case helped shed light, and hopefully through the power of social media and people are able to see, exactly what happened. This case reached limits that the Rodney King trial never reached, just because of social media. Going back to for our team, we're heading in the right direction. I can't stress that enough. I love where we are right now, just in terms of the open and honest conversations and uncomfortable conversations that we're having. I told our players last week when we talked about the Dante Wright situation, is I made a mistake last summer in assuming that my players knew where I stood. I made a mistake in assuming that I knew where certain players stood based off of where they were from or what they may look like. That was a mistake on my part. I'll never do it again. We have open and honest conversation here, not only as in terms of our positions, but cross-positionally too in the Hawkeye Challenge groups. And I've really been enlightened by the things that our young men have to say. It's just, I feel good. I'm proud of where we are right now, because of these young people see this as a safe space to be able to share their opinions, regardless of if they differ or whatever side of the spectrum that they're on. What we're trying to teach and what we're trying to breed here with these young people is respect. We want them to know that they're loved. We want them to know that they have significance here. We want them to know that they're accepted here. And that's of any and all opinions. And hopefully, once they leave here, they can go and make the world a better place, because they are the future. They're the future policemen. They're the future troopers. They're the future lawyers and doctors of this world. And I don't take lightly the impact that we're going to have on them during this 4 or 5 year period. So, the open and honest conversations that we're having, specifically on topics of race, on topics of social and racial injustice, it's unbelievable, because we spent a lot of time talking about team building. We spent a lot of time talking about leadership and things of that nature. But there's some other issues too that were not being approached, that are being approached now. And I think our players appreciate it, and I know our coaches on the coaching staff appreciate it.
Kelvin, the next question is from Grant Becker.
Kelvin, I really appreciate your perspective on that. And I guess I want to stay here as well and ask what your personal reaction to that was yesterday. And were you nervous? Did you watch it? And have you had conversations with any of the young black men on your team following the verdict? And I mean, just what was that day like for you, not as a football coach or a football player, but as a black man in this country?
I didn't watch the verdict, but I didn't watch it. I was watching it on Twitter as it was going down on Twitter. And so, yeah, I mean, yes, I was nervous because, like I said before, I've seen it where it didn't go down, where a person was murdered, video evidence showed that a person was murdered regardless of intent. And I've seen it go the other way where a person can be acquitted of that. So there was some tense moments for me, wondering whether or not the officer was going to be convicted or not. And like I said, I think that just goes to show you how much further we have to go when, you can do it on camera for the world to see and people still have doubt. In terms of our team, like I said, I missed out on the meeting this morning. I didn't have a chance to. I wasn't there. Had another obligation, but I will take the time to talk to our guys about it. I've talked to friends around the country about it, and there's still a lot of work to be done, Grant. It's a step in the right direction. I think the precedent was set. And those are good things, but there's still a lot of work to do. And as a black man, it's not going to. I'm still going to talk to my son about when he gets up driving age 10 and 2 and how to respond, because although it's a step in the right direction, we still have a long way to go.
Kelvin, the next question is from Mike Halas.
Hi, Kelvin. Good afternoon.
What's up, Mike?
I'll ask you about something you mentioned moments ago in that you have been enlightened by your players. How have they enlightened you? What do you know now that you may not have known several months ago about them and what they think?
I think just the general unawareness, specifically, and my room is made up of black and white players. I got some mixed players and some black players, but just the general unawareness last year of our white players, that they had no idea that our black players felt the way that they did, which was, we spend a lot of time together. We shower together, we live together, we eat together. And just the general unawareness from them was a shock to me. And I felt bad because I missed an opportunity to educate them. I'm with them every single day. And, just to worry about, how they're playing on the field and how they're doing in the classroom, I missed an opportunity to educate them on where I'm coming from and what my walk or what my drive to the facility may be like. I missed that opportunity, and I won't do it again. And although they were unaware, they weren't reluctant to listen. Actually, they wanted to listen. They were thirsty for that knowledge. That brought us together. Me being open and honest, transparent, vulnerable, even with some of my stories to them. I think it brought us closer. They have a newfound respect for me. And then, again, the players of color here, just learning from them is they see it exactly how I see it, but from their perspective of being, student athletes. I haven't lost what that feeling's like, but also I'm 38 years old. I'm not walking around this campus anymore as a teenager or a young adult. So I understand that their perspective is different, even more so now. So I've just been enlightened on both sides of the story of the coin. And like I said before, I won't make the mistake again of assuming that they know how I feel. And I won't make the mistake of assuming that I know how they feel. We're going to talk about it. However uncomfortable it may be, we're going to have those conversations because I ultimately believe it's going to bring us closer together.
Kelvin, we'll ask for your time for one more question. Final question this afternoon is from Scott Docterman.
Yeah, Kelvin, I'll keep it on this topic as well. And just wanted to kind of ask you about, is there anything you took away from maybe some of your white players, maybe their perspectives? Did that give you pause? Did you think about their thoughts? And has that kind of helped bridge a gap that maybe what was there a year ago?
Just going back to what I took away from them was that, when you're in the majority, you don't really think about how things affect the minority. And that doesn't make you a bad person. Okay, so that doesn't make you a bad person. It's just you're unaware. You haven't been exposed to it. But it's our job in this environment that we're in, this football environment, where we're bringing kids in from all over the country, all different kinds of backgrounds, to make sure that everyone is exposed to everyone's culture, to make sure that everyone feels uncomfortable. We talk about we say be comfortable being uncomfortable. Well, that doesn't just happen in the weight room or on the field. That needs to happen socially as well. And the only way that can happen socially is through conversation. And if you're not fostering a conversation, then you'll never get a chance to mature in that arena in terms of social and racial inequality and social and racial justice. So just their thirst for knowledge and their acceptance once the conversations were had, that's something that I take away from it, because they weren't resistant to it. They didn't put their head in the sand and say, oh, well, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to talk about it. That's not my problem. These guys opened up and they were receptive and they showed some empathy. So that's what I took away from them, especially in talking about the white players, is that they wanted to know. They wanted to know, much like on the coaching field, kids want to be coached. They wanted to have these conversations, where I know some adults who are set in their ways who don't want to have the conversation. And that's just, I guess it's just part of being old.
Kelvin, we can't thank you enough for sharing your perspective this afternoon. We really appreciate your time. So all the best moving forward.